Hello, 7th grade students. Today we are going to be constructing congruent triangles. So go ahead and open your table of contents. You're going to be getting a note sheet from the teacher that looks like this. I put the triangles on there to just give us something to duplicate here. So this is going to be the 7th page behind our table of contents. So we can put notes, construct congruent triangles. Okay, so we can label our note sheet page 7. When we are done, we'll go ahead and put this in our binders. Okay, so all you need right now is your note sheet. All right, so today our topic is construct congruent triangles using a straight edge and compass. Okay, so let's go ahead and just jump in with some examples here. You're pretty familiar now with constructions. You know how to construct a congruent line segment, a congruent circle, and a congruent angle. Triangle is just one step further in that process. So let's go ahead and take a look at that first triangle here. I'm going to walk you through the steps to do this. So we're going to start again, like we always do, with a starter line. Okay, so there's my starter line. I want to make sure it's longer than whatever line segment I'm going to start with. I'm going to start with this side of the triangle, so I just made sure it was a little bit longer than that. Now I'm going to take my compass, and I'm going to measure the length of that side, whatever side I choose. I'm choosing this side right here. Okay, now I'm going to come over to my starter line and I'm going to mark that. So what we're saying now is that this is one vertex of our triangle, this is another vertex. Now what we're going to do is we're going to measure the second side. Okay, I'm going to come over here and I'm going to make an arc. Okay, so I measured that side and I kept the measurement on and I made an arc. Now we're going to go ahead and measure the third side of our triangle. Okay. I'm going to come over to the end point here, the second vertex of that side, and I'm going to make an arc. Okay, now where those arcs cross is going to be that third vertex of our triangle. We're going to connect this end of our triangle. Okay, and we see this is the second vertex that we created, we constructed, and then we're going to connect these two. Okay, so we have created congruent line segments. Let's go ahead and name this triangle, both these triangles, so that we can write a congruent statement. I'm going to label this triangle A, B, C. And my next triangle is D, E, F. So when I write my congruent statement, I'm going to say triangle A, B, C is congruent to triangle D, E, F. Now we want to make sure that the points are in the correct order. So you can see that point A corresponds with point D, point B corresponds with point E, and point C corresponds with F. So we want to make sure that we have them lined up in the same order, A and D first, B and E second, and C and F third. we'll go ahead and do one more example, and then I'm going to have you practice on your own. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do exactly what I did last time. I'm going to start with a starter line. Okay, I made sure that my starter line was a little bit longer than the side of the triangle that I'm going to start with. In this case, I'm going to use this side to start. So I'm going to take my compass, I'm going to measure that side of the triangle, and I'm going to mark it. Okay, so what I've done is I have vertex 1 here, vertex 2 here. Now we need to find where that third vertex is. So I'm going to measure both sides of my triangle, starting with the second side. Okay, so then I'm going to mark. I measured it, and now I'm going to make an arc. Now I'm going to come back and measure the third side of my triangle. This time I'm going to start at the second vertex over here. A common error that I saw last year for my students is that they were trying to use the same vertex to measure both, and it didn't work. And you can see that I did not make my arc big enough there. So I'm going to come back to that side, measure it again, and I'm going to extend my arc. I think my hand had slipped last time because you can see that my the arc, it moved out a little bit. So I'm going to put the third vertex here now, and we are going to connect it to make our triangle. Okay, let's go ahead and give these triangles names so that we can write a congruent statement. We'll do G, H, J, and K, L, M. And we can say that triangle G, H, J is congruent to triangle K, L, M. Okay, remember that order matters. We want, if this point corresponds with this point, we want them to be in the same lineup. So we put G first, so we would also want to put K first, and so on. I'm going to have you practice now. So go ahead and take a moment, pause the video, and give these two triangles a try. I would like you to construct a congruent triangle and then write a congruent statement for each one. Okay, hopefully you had a chance to try that out. I'm going to quickly run through the process of constructing these triangles. I'm going to start with a starter line here. I'm going to measure one of the sides of the triangle, and I'm going to come over here and I'm going to mark it. Okay. Then I'm going to measure the second side of my triangle. Okay, and I'm going to go to one vertex and arc it. And then I'm going to come over to the second vertex, measure third side of the triangle, I mean. And then I am going to make an arc here. Okay, where those two arcs cross is where I'm going to connect to make my triangle. Okay, you may have given your triangle different names than I did, and that's fine. I'm going to do X, Y, and Z, and S, T, we'll do an R here. Now when I write my congruent statement, I just want to make sure that I have triangle XYZ is congruent to triangle. The S and the X correspond to each other, so I'm going to put S, and then the Y and the T correspond, so that's T, and the Z and the R correspond, so that's R. Okay, I'm going to do one more. Okay, I'm going to start with the starter line. Okay, I made sure that the line is just a little bit longer than this side of my triangle. Now I'm going to measure that line. Oh, maybe I didn't make it long enough. I'm going to have to extend that line slightly. Now, these are all things that you're going to run into as you're constructing as well. Okay, so here are the two first and second vertexes. Now I'm going to measure this side of my triangle. And I'm going to create my arc. Then I'm going to come back over and measure the third side of my triangle. And I'm going to make an arc. Now I have everything that I need to go ahead and connect and make that triangle. Okay, let's go ahead and label this now. I'm running out of good ideas for points. We'll just be boring and do A, B, C. Or D, that's not boring, E, F, and G. And I'm going to write my congruent statement. I'm going to say that triangle A, B, D is congruent to triangle E, F, G. Now you're going to notice this rectangular box here that I put there for the steps. We're going to write down the steps so that way you have them for the future reference. Okay, so step one was to construct starter line. Okay, then we measured the first side and we marked our starter line. Then we did this third step here is that we measure the second side of the triangle. And we made an arc. From the first end point. Fourth step, we repeat. With the third side. And then the very last step is to connect the vertexes to, or I guess that would be vertices, to make a triangle. Okay, we're going to look at one more thing before we end the lesson today. So go ahead and turn your notes over. you have all these lines. We are going to take these lines and construct triangles from them. So let's go ahead and what we're going to do, you don't need a ruler, right? Well, actually you do need a ruler. You're going to do a starter. You're going to use a starter line here. Okay. Then we're going to go through and measure. This is going to be the first side of our triangle. We're using these lengths to create a triangle. So I'm going to mark this. Okay, so there's 2 vertices of our triangle. And we're going to measure that second line. That's going to be the second side of our triangle. Okay, so we made an arc over here. Actually, I'm probably going to need to extend it further down, I believe. So let me go. Okay, now we're going to measure that third side. This is the third side of our triangle. And we're going to go to that second endpoint now, and we're going to create an arc. See, good thing I extended that arc. Now where these 2 arcs cross is going to be the third vertex of our triangle. Okay, so we have created a triangle that has these lengths, segment lengths, as our sides. Okay, I'm going to do one more with you, and then I'm going to have you practice. We're going to use a starter line. We're going to measure that first line segment. This is going to be the first side of our triangle. So now we have 1 vertex, 2 vertex. Okay, now we're going to measure the second line. That's going to be the second side of our triangle. Okay, then we're going to come down. We're going to measure that third line. This is going to be the third side of our triangle. Okay, we're going to go ahead and connect the endpoints with the intersection of those 2 arcs. Okay, now what I would like you to do is get some practice. There is going to be 1 set of lines that is going to be a little different than what we've seen up here. So go ahead and give it a try, see how it goes, and then we'll discuss it in just a moment. Pause your video and get some practice. All right, hopefully you had a chance to construct these triangles from these line segments. Let's go ahead and look at this first one here. Okay, I'm going to start with my starter line just like usual. I'm going to take my compass and measure that first line. I'm going to come down here and mark it. Okay, so I've got 1 vertex, and here's the second vertex. Now I'm going to measure that second line segment. We're going to make an arc here. It's a small arc. And now I'm going to measure that third line segment. Okay, so you're going to notice that those arcs do not cross. So we can say that this group of line segments does not create a triangle. So we can just write not possible. Okay, Let's go ahead and try the second and third group of line segments. I'm going to start with my starter line. I'm going to measure that first line segment. I'm going to measure the second line segment. You're going to find that the more you practice, the faster you are going to get at creating or constructing these triangles. Okay, I'm going to measure that third line segment. All right, here is our triangle. Okay, one last triangle that we're going to construct. Let's go ahead and get a starter line. Okay, we're going to measure the first line and mark it. We're going to measure the second line. And we're going to create an arc. And we're going to measure the third line and create another arc. Okay, where they cross is that third vertex of your triangle. We are going to connect them. All right, if you have a moment, I suggest that you write a summary. It'll really help solidify your understanding. We're going to go ahead and put these notes back into our binder so that we do not lose them. Okay, so we decided that this was going to be page 7 on our table of contents. So I'm going to move on to the back of my math section, page 7, and put my page in. Okay, now your homework tonight looks like this. This is handout 2. You're going to practice constructing 2 congruent triangles, and you're also going to construct 2 triangles from line segments. Okay, you can name this page 8. This is going to be our next page in our table of contents. So I'm going to call this handout 2. When you come in tomorrow, you have a quiz. You're going to have to construct a congruent line segment, a congruent circle, a congruent angle, and a congruent triangle. I am going to be looking for your construction marks. Please do not use the measurements on your ruler to construct your congruent figures. I will not count that as correct. If you have any questions, please ask a classmate or ask your teacher. I'll see you next time.